Welcome fellow Jeepers and off-road degenerates, I mean enthusiasts. This is Flawed Offroad. My name's Dan. Today's video is going to be all about what I've got in store for 2021 with this Jeep, with my trailer, and I might have two mystery projects coming up soon. And I'm also going to show you what I've gotten done since the last update video I did on the YJ, on the axle swap and spring over and all that crap. Stay tuned. Ooh, it's cold in here. Let's get the shop warmed up. So 2021 is going to be huge here at Flawed Offroad, and I can't wait to get all this stuff going and to share it with you guys. So obviously we got to finish Hell on Wheels here. I've got that parts / used to be project Jeep outside that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with yet. I've got the M101 trailer, and I've got a mystery project coming up. Alright, so if you haven't checked it out already, I did the initial video on this Jeep and kind of the axles I used and all that stuff. I'll link that up above. This one's just going to be kind of like, what have I done since then? Alright, so let's dive right into it, shall we? In the last video, I had this axle kind of all wrapped up in a welding blanket, and I didn't even really show you what was going on with it. So this is a Dana 60 from a 78 F250. So I have bored out the spindles to take 35 spline chromoly axle shafts. Just got the aux locker put in and this truss. I'm thinking this is going to be plenty beefy for what I do with it. Now, I'm a pretty beginner welder, but I actually think I'm actually pretty satisfied how I did on like most of these welds anyway. I mean, there's a couple of them that look shitty, but is it just me, or is it easier to weld on thicker steel? Maybe that's just me. Now, one thing you'll see here is kind of a unique traction bar mount, and it's sitting, well, part of it sitting up on top of the truss. Now, I had bought the Barnes traction bar kit, basically. It came with these, this was all one bracket, this and this. And it has like a rounded part that grips on the axle tube. And the problem with it, with having this truss here, is that the bottom part of it was like hanging down, not as low as the diff, but it was definitely hanging down below the axle tube, and I couldn't rotate it back any farther to raise it because it was running into the truss. So I was originally going to just try to notch into it like that so that I could get it up and out of there. But the more I got looking at it, and I finally just was like, you know what, I can just make this into two different tabs. So I mounted the lower ones just directly to the axle, and those ones where they are. So I decided I'm going to actually pull this out one more time to do the finish welding on that and on those shock brackets. What made this a little bit on the difficult side was the fact that it was on the angled part of the truss. And that's actually why this side has that little chunk of plating under it. I got my angles perfect, but I must have measured something wrong, and this one side was too short. The angle was dead on. And rather than chop the other side down to where that side contacted, I didn't really want to bring this lower. Like, I wanted there to be plenty of clearance. In retrospect, I had more than enough. I could have just chopped that side, but it was exactly a 1/4 inch gap. So I just cut a little chunk of 1/4 inch plate, tacked it down, tacked this to that, and then I'm just gonna weld both of them. All in all, I think it turned out pretty good, and it allowed me to also keep it really close to I got just enough room to weld, but it's as close to the center as I could get it. With that bracket, the way it came, I was actually like lining it up out here just to try to get it rotated up high enough. And with traction bars, they work better the more synergy you have them to the axle. I still have no idea how I'm gonna mount it up here though. I would really like to go to a different skid plate, rather than sticking with this factory one. It's just not really in the budget right now. But I'm gonna end up building some kind of a cross member or something. The way that I have this closer to the center, it ends up lining up right here. And I did an AW4 transmission swap on this Jeep, so the transfer case is farther back, and it's actually farther back than the skid plate. So with the front of this bar is gonna have a shackle on it. I don't want it to like be in a way where it can hit the transfer case, so I might have to just build some kind of weird cross member back here. And I don't know how I'm gonna do it yet, so that's why that's just kind of sitting there how it is. I figured after I finish up a couple more things, I'll get this pulled out, get everything finished welded, and then it'll kind of get its final install. So I've been focusing more of my work on the rear axle in the last month or so since I did the last video, and I had to bore out these spindles to fit the 35 spline shafts, and I got the new shafts in. Had to chop them down. They're just sitting in here right now. I still need gaskets and whatnot. I had to get a little creative on shock mounting. So here's that. I just have it tacked in. I really wanted it on this side, but with the calipers being there and everything, I was gonna angle them back to come up this way. And I figured out how to take these Ford shock towers, and I sliced a piece out of them, but I left the backing on it. So the backing comes down behind the frame there. By the time these shocks angle out to where those axle side brackets are. So I think that's gonna leave me enough room in between the frame and the shock body to where I don't have to French it in. All I can do is find out. So what I might actually do is before I finish weld that, I might get this all back together and actually flex the Jeep out and see how close that comes to hitting it. Now, like I was saying, I wanted to actually run them back this way, but there's like a big chunk of the body mount back here and the caliper being in the way, so I just decided to set them like that on the front side of the axle. I don't see why it would be an issue, to be honest with you. So that's pretty much it. I've only got a start on this side, but I think by the time I weld all the way around this, down the back side, and then I'm gonna put some nice meaty gussets on the side of this. Now the worst case scenario though, if this does end up a little bit close here, I can still clearance this frame out right here and plate it. I don't want to, but if I have to, I will. Now, on the front, I really haven't gotten a lot done, I'm going to be honest with you. Still have this this steering puzzle. But first, I'll show you what I have done, and that's basically, since the last video, I've gotten these Moto-Built shock towers tacked into place and the Barnes shock mounts tacked into place. It was a little bit trickier than I thought, getting the angles to match up the way I wanted. And I'm reluctant to do any finish welding on this right now just because I was actually hoping to find a shock that's long enough to actually just bolt it up and make sure I like how everything's gonna sit before I burn it in totally. So I still have the steering puzzle that I want to try to figure out. These arms came with this axle, but I had purchased these spacers and these longer studs to lift this up enough to where it wasn't gonna hit this, because where it was at, it was super close to the leaf, and I felt like once the leaf moved, it was just gonna rub it. The idea was great in theory, but in principle, by the time I get this way up on here, and then I don't know, I guess I'm gonna use this hole for the drag link. I certainly still don't have enough room to put the tie rod here and the drag link here. It's probably hard to tell, but I mean, the drag link's gonna be like that close to the freaking frame. It's gonna need sectioned out unless I go back to not using these spacers and just, you know, the previous owner actually cut and tacked these to go way down here. And so I could just get rid of the spacers, put the drag link on this, and put the tie rod down here. I wanted to get it up and out of the rocks, but in all honesty, even this mount right here, if you look, I mean, it's on the upper half of the axle tube. That's probably higher than my old steering was, or about the same. Before I do anything too drastic on here, I may actually just burn these fuckers in and set it up down there and then kind of revisit this at a later date. So for tires, I ended up going with Humvee 37s, and I'm going to actually use, on the Jeep anyway, the 4 wheels. I'm getting them, well, actually, I'm going to recenter them, and I'm going to do a video on that, but I'm going to use those H1 bead locks. So the other 3 here are for my M101 trailer, and one is going to serve as a spare for the trailer and for the Jeep. So it won't be a bead lock, and the back spacing is a lot more, so I'm going to end up having to buy 1 spacer. I hate wheel spacers, but if I need one to get back on the trail, I'll use it. So these are the Baja, BF Goodrich Baja tires on these 3, mostly because I got them for $100 a piece. And then these are the Goodyear MTR Humvee tires. They're a little bit different than the civilian MTR pattern. Maybe they're kind of like the old ones, but out of the 3 choices that they had, these were the only ones that had any kind of side lugs. Now, I've heard these are kind of stiff and they're probably not the best tires, but I got all 7 of these tires and 4 of the wheels for probably less than what a normal set of 4 tires only would have cost, so I can't argue it too much. But anyway, if you've used these tires before and you've got any input for me, drop it down in the comments. Let me know what you think of them. Another quick thing, since I'm right here, part of that gift card I had won, I ended up using on a hood louver. And I'm probably going to do an install video on this. Now this, I made a rubbing of my Islander hood decal because I'm going to have to cover it up. And I was just thinking, okay, if I do a rubbing of it, then I have the dimensions and stuff. And if I want to try to get my sticker lady to make some more or whatever and stick them on top of the hood louver, or I might even just try to paint it back on there. I don't know. I'll make it work, but it's just not a priority right now. So this video is not just about what I've got done, but what I'm about to do. And I am going to be making an onboard air system. And since my Jeep does not have air conditioning, gotta love these crappy old horns, I'm going to find either one of the factory YJ, I think they're Sandon compressors, or I'm going to look for a York 210, and I'm going to make belt-driven onboard air. I don't like electric compressors. They're slow, they're noisy, they're hot. So I'll show you what I've got in mind for my tank options in a little bit. But having that aux locker now, I do need an air supply, and I don't have a ton of storage space to run a power tank or anything like that. But I might be making one of my own anyway. These are some of my tank choices. Now, this one on the left is an old Pepsi CO2 bottling tank that hasn't been inspected in like 15 years. Pretty common theme. Same with this fire extinguisher. But look, it's still in the green, so that has to mean something, right? Now, I think I can make this little yellow guy that I got for $5 freaking, by the way. Do believe I can get that to fit in the Jeep, and that way I have a few gallon reserve supply. Now this little guy could be a nice backup. See, Pepsi, 2004. It's really just a weird coincidence. I promise these came from 2 completely different places. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, power tank. So I could make a poor man's power tank out of this guy. It's really freaking big though. And I don't really got the room in here for it. Even if I set it on the little fender well there, this new bar I put in here kind of makes it stick way out. I'm probably going to have to use this space here, or at least part of it, for my fuel cell. So I don't really see how I'm going to make that work. However, I am doing that M101 Army trailer, and so if I can't make that thing work on the Jeep, it will most definitely fit in that trailer either as expansion to the onboard air system or just as a CO2 tank. So I'm stuck with these 2 guys. But if you take a little walk with me over here, Jeep has a funny way of doing things sometimes, and they put this goofy little cross member on here. It's pretty thick. It's like It's probably, yeah, 8th wall. And I see no reason that I can't weld the end of this up and use that as extra tank space. Well, it's kind of hard to see, but that bar right there, there's plenty of room, like, behind it and underneath to drill and tap for fittings and whatnot. Maybe even a drain. So I'm just going to have to figure out where else I can fit one of those other tanks and then use this little guy also. You know, I gotta admit, it is kind of hard to get off the ground doing these YouTube videos. So far, I've had nothing but good feedback from everybody, and it seems like those of you that are watching are really enjoying this, and I know for a fact that a few of my videos have tremendously helped some people out already on Jeep Forum and places like that. And honestly, the biggest thing is I'm just really enjoying it. So I wanted to thank you guys for watching, and if you do like everything you see here, tell your friends about it, share it on your Facebook, follow me on Instagram. I'd love to keep growing and expanding. So some of the other stuff I do have planned for this year is my wheeling trips. Now I am taking a 2-week long out west expedition. I kind of want to hit the Pacific Northwest. I'm definitely hitting South Dakota because I got to make up for my son. I was supposed to take him there last year, then my surgeries happened. There's a group of my buddies, and we do this thing called the Adequate Adventure. It's a play on the Ultimate Adventure, and they're talking about going to Southern Missouri Off-Road Range this year. So I plan on attending that, and I also really want to go back to Moab. I know that's kind of a full plate for somebody who lives in Iowa. That's a lot of driving. Keep your eye out later this year for all that stuff. So the biggest reason that I haven't gotten farther than this is just money and time. I suppose that's everybody's problem. I missed a few months of work this year due to 2 surgeries I had to have. That kind of ate into my little stash of money I had. So it's kind of been one piece at a time. And then I've also been waiting on those wheels to get here so I can check my clearances to move forward in a lot of other areas. Time, you know, being back at work now, that eats a bunch of it. And then also doing these videos and the editing and stuff takes a good bit of time. Plus I got 4 kids in this house. So as far as what I need to finish this Jeep right now so I can get it back on the road and back on the trail, it's mostly a lot of little stuff, but I do need to buy shocks. I need drive shafts front and rear. I need the material to finish the traction bar, the tubing, and the cross to make the cross member. I need a lot of little stuff like longer brake lines, probably fuel lines. I need to figure out the fuel cell situation because the stock tank ain't gonna fit back in there. So I need to figure out exactly how I'm gonna fit that in there. I do have a behind the seat fuel cell, but I don't want to give up that space. So I'm kind of working on a couple little weird ideas for that. I'm sure I'm also forgetting other stuff, but that's the gist of what I really have left to buy on my list. I'm sure it's probably doubled that, honestly. Now, real quick about that M101 trailer. When this thing's done, that M101's coming in here. I'm gonna get a Dexter axle 8 lug so that it matches the pattern of the Jeep, because it has this goofy, huge 5 lug pattern on it, and the axle weighs like 500 pounds or something ridiculous like that. So I'm gonna lighten it up tremendously and get electric brakes in the process doing that. Once that's done, I need to build a rack for a rooftop tent and actually buy the rooftop tent. And I can't decide between a fixed one that's at a decent height or one of the, I've seen a lot of people putting them on like air shocks or even some kind of struts where you unpin them and then it actually raises up. Whatever I do, I am going to be walking you guys through that process and showing you the way. Anyway, thanks for watching Flawed Offroad. Subscribe, like the video, stick around so you can see what's going on with this trailer, the Jeep, and maybe even my mystery project. Anyway, we will see you next time. Stay flawed.